the SOLAS Convention. It is successive forms of generally regarded as the most important of all international treaties. Concerning the safety of merchant ships, the main objectives of the SOLAS Convention is to specify minimum standards for the construction, equipment, and operation of the ship. Compatible with their safety flag states are responsible for ensuring the ship under their flag comply with its requirement. And a number of certificates is prescribed in the convention as proof that this has been done. Control provision also allowed contracting government to respect ship of the other contracting state. If there are clear grounds for believing that the ships and its equipment do not substantially comply with the requirements of the convention, this procedure is known as port state control. Protocol of 1978 relating the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea. 1974 objectives to improve further the safety of ships, particularly tankers. Summary of revision. The protocol was adopted under the SOLAS Convention in the framework of the International Maritime Organization or IMO. The International Regulation for the Preventing Collision at Sea, 1972. Colorings are published by the International Maritime Organization or IMO and set out among the other things that rules of the road or navigation rules to be followed by the ship and other vessels at sea to prevent collision between two or more vessels.
MARPOL. MARPOL is the main international convention covering prevention of pollution of the marine environment by ships from operational or accidental causes. The MARPOL Convention was adopted on November 2, 1973 at IMO. The convention includes regulation aimed at preventing and minimizing pollution from ships, both accidental pollution and that from routine operations, and currently includes 6 technical annexes. Special areas with strict controls on operational discharges are included in most annexes. MARPOL, the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, is concerned with preventing marine pollution from ships. Specifically, Annex 6 of MARPOL addresses air pollution from ocean-going ships. The international air pollution requirements of Annex 6 establish limits on nitrogen oxides emissions and required the use of fuel with lower sulfur content protecting people's health and the environment by reducing ozone-producing pollution which can cause smog or aggravate asthma. The first international convention on load lines, adopted on 1930, was based on the principle of reserve buoyancy, although it was recognized then that the freeboard should also ensure adequate stability and avoid excessive stress on the ship's hull as a result of overloading. In the 1966 Load Lines Convention adopted by IMO, provisions are made for determining the freeboard of ships by subdivision and damage stability calculations. The regulations take into account the potential hazards present in different zones and different seasons.
The International Maritime Organization, IMO, established the space requirements for special trade passenger ships 1973. It describes particular rules about how space are allotted and designed on special trade passenger ships. For such vessels to be safe, comfortable, and effective, certain rules are essential. An international convention covering the liability of operators involved in the maritime transport of nuclear materials is called the Convention Relating to the Civil Liability in the Field of Maritime Carriage of Nuclear 1971. Also referred to as the Brussels Convention or Nuclear 1971, a responsibility frameworks for events involving radioactive materials during maritime carriage is established under the convention. An international treaty known as International Convention on the Establishment of an International Fund for Compensation for Oil Pollution Damage 1971 or Fund 1971 was made to address compensation for harm to the environment caused by oil spill from the ships. The main objective is promptly and adequately compensate individuals impacted by oil spill. The original Fund 1971 agreement was amended by the Fund Prot 1976 with the goal of improving the measures for compensating for damage to the environment caused by oil contamination originating from marine occurrences. The protocol broadened the range of compensable damages and raised the cap of compensation.
The 1992 Protocol to the International Convention on the Establishment of an International Fund for Compensation for the Oil Pollution Damage. It represents a significant development in the international efforts to address the consequences of oil pollution incidents. This protocol is closely associated with the International Convention on Civil Liability for Oil Pollution Damage and serves to enhance the compensation mechanism established by the CLC. One of the primary objectives of the 1992 Protocol is to increase the liability limits for oil pollution damage. By doing this, the protocol seeks to ensure that the compensation available to the victim is more commensurate with the actual cost incurred as a result of oil spills. This adjustment in liability limits reflects a recognition of the evolving economic landscape and the need to provide meaningful compensation to those affected by major oil pollution incidents. In summary, the 1992 Protocol to the Fund builds upon the foundation laid by the CLC, offering a more robust framework for addressing the aftermath of oil pollution incidents. Through increased liability limits and a broader scope of coverage, the protocol strives to enhance the effectiveness of international mechanisms in providing fair and adequate compensation to those impacted by oil spills. The Convention on Limitation of Liability for Maritime Claims, or LLMC, adopted in 1976, This is an international treaty that established a framework for limiting the liability of ship owners and other entities involving in maritime activities. The primary goal of LLMC is to provide a fair and uniform system for determining the maximum liability that can be imposed on these entities in the event of certain maritime incidents. By establishing a global framework for container safety, the CSC enhances the efficiency and safety of international maritime trade, protects the environment from potential hazard associated with poorly maintained containers, and promote the seamless movement of goods across the borders. Countries that are parties to the convention commit to implementing and enforcing its provisions, contributing to a safer and more reliable global containerized cargo transport system. The LLMC establishes limits on the liability of ship owners and other liable parties. The calculation of these limits is based on the tonnage of the vessel involved in the incident. Essentially, the larger the ship, the higher the maximum liability. This is intended to provide a degree of financial predictability for the ship owners and operators. By providing a standard and internationally recognized framework for limiting liability, the LLMC contributes to the stability and predictability of the maritime industry. It has been widely adopted by many countries, helping to create a consistent and harmonized approach to addressing liabilities issues in the context of maritime activities.
9. The Protocol of 1988 relating to the International Convention on Load Lines 1966. Protocol 1988 is a set of regulations that amends in the International Convention on Load Lines 1966. ICLL 1966 to determine the minimum allowable freeboard and defines condition of load line assignment. The ICLL 1966 adopted by the International Maritime Organization (IMO) that provision for determining the freeboard of the ship by subdivision and damage stability calculation. The ICLL 1966 and its Protocol of 1988 are administered by the IMO and periodically amended by the Load Line Protocol of 1988. The Load Line International Load Line Certificate 1966 shall not be delivered to the ship until the officers or surveyor acting under the provision of the regulation has determined that the ship has been surveyed and marked in accordance with regulation. 10. The International Convention on Tonnage Measurement of Ships 1969 Tonnage 1969 is an international treaty that establishes uniform principles and rules for determining the tonnage of ships engaged in international voyages. It was adopted by the International Maritime Organization (IMO) in 1969 and came into force in 1982. The convention introduced a universal tonnage measurement system, replacing various existing systems. One of the key requirements of the convention is the issuance of the International Tonnage Certificate 1969 to every ship, indicating its gross and net tonnage determined in accordance with the convention. The certificate is issued by the ship's administration or by any recognized person or organization authorized by the administration. The gross tonnage reflects the size of the ship, while the net tonnage reflects its capacity. The convention also outlines the conditions under which the certificate may cease to be valid, such as alteration of the ship that affects in tonnage. 11. The International Convention relating inter- The International Convention relating to the intervention on high seas in cases of oil pollution casualties in 1969. Intervention 1969 is an international agreement that enables countries to take action on the high seas in cases of a maritime casualty resulting in danger of oil pollution of the sea and coastlines. The convention applied to casualties involving pollution by oil, but it has been expanded and included other substances, mainly chemical. The convention was concluded on November 29, 1969 in Brussels and entered into force on May 6, 1975, 12. The protocol relating to intervention on high seas in cases pollution by substances other than oil. 1973 allows party to take measures on high seas to prevent, mitigate, or eliminate grave and imminent danger to their coastline or related interest from pollution by substances than oil. The protocol was concluded in London on November 2, 1973 and entered into force on March 30, 1983. It affirms the right of coastal states to intervene on the high seas to address such pollution incidents. The protocol is an extension of international convention relating to intervention on high seas in cases of oil pollution. It was adopted in 1969.